Sleep training is hard for parents. And when you're sleep deprived, you're not running on all cylinders. And today, I'm going to share the top 6 of 12 reasons why sleep training can be such a challenge for families. And in today's episode, I'm going to share the things that I've observed over the last decade. Let's get started. In our most sleep-deprived moments, our children will teach us exactly what we need in order to learn and grow into who we were created to be. These are the loving lessons we will learn whether we were wanting to or not. I'm Irene, your sleep coach, and I'm on mission to educate parents on how to help their young children sleep. Welcome to the journey. It's hard to believe that I have been a sleep coach for over 10 years. I started this journey in 2011, and I've seen a lot of things come up for parents, especially when it comes to sleep coaching. When I sat down to plan out, what are the top reasons? What's holding families back from getting that good night of sleep? I really was able to dwindle it down to 12, but really I think it could have been 20 or 30 different reasons. But I'm going to share the reasons that come up, and I'll share some action steps you can take so you can have some sleep success in your home. So the first reason is that children can be unpredictable. Whether you have a newborn, an infant, a toddler, or a preschooler, we recognize right from the beginning that our little ones have their own unique personalities, their own thoughts, feelings, and opinions on things. So I think that parenting, taking care of another human being, is just really hard because adulting is hard. Doing adult-like things can be really challenging. But when you have a child, sometimes you don't know what to expect, which is one of the number one reasons why I encourage parents to implement flexible routines. That can oftentimes really help us go with the flow, become flexible and adaptable with our little ones, especially when they're going through different seasons of life. And I think that sometimes this unpredictability also helps families have a hard time sticking to a plan and being consistent. The second thing that oftentimes makes it hard is that we're not listening to our bodies. And this one's really hard because a lot of times we don't realize that feeding and sleeping are things that help the body regulate and feel good and feel its best. But here's the thing. Sometimes when we're tired, we don't tune in. We don't listen. I wonder if you've ever had this happen, because this is what happens to me. I'm kind of feeling tired, and all of a sudden I grab my phone and I just start scrolling. And so now I'm getting myself overtired and I'm not listening to my body. The same thing happens with our children. Sometimes their body is communicating to us that I'm really tired or I'm really hungry. And so if we can tune in and listen to our bodies, we actually can minimize crying, and we also can have more sleep coaching success. But it's really hard because sometimes there's so many distractions. And so it's one of those areas that is a process. This is something that has been part of my journey of becoming a calm and confident parent. Because I'm going to tell you, I didn't always listen to my body. And I did not become a good sleeper until 2014. And a lot of that had to do with I knew my body was tired, but I wasn't doing the things that my body needed. And so because I didn't do that for myself, it was actually really difficult for me to trust that what my children were saying and communicating would be true. So sometimes we're not listening to our bodies. The third thing that can cause sleep-deprived nights is lack of sleep and stress. It can make it really hard to focus, create a plan when we're tired. And a lot of times we don't even realize the impact of stress that's coming on for us as parents. Sometimes we're bringing in a new baby, maybe we're moving, changing jobs, even being home on maternity leave and planning to go back to work is a life transition and stressor. And so it can really make it hard to be consistent. And sometimes because of that, we can create and put on expectations on ourselves, on our children, that can create more stress for everyone. And a lot of times when we're feeling that sleeplessness and that stress, it actually causes us to disconnect during the day. And again, that's going to cause more sleep deprivation on top of that. Now, I will tell you that some families may experience 1, 2, or all of these areas. And I think it's one of those things that when we think about doing one thing to make a small change, we actually can shift and change everything in our home. And that's the part where when I'm working with families, I really try to share with them, let's work smarter and not harder. Let's figure out the one area where we can make the biggest change to see other things shift in our home. And so especially when it comes to that sleep and stress, figuring out where do you need to work smarter and not harder. And I'm going to give you a big hint that has a lot to do with bedtime, because bedtime is the easiest time of day for our little ones to learn that skill. And that's often where you can really begin seeing the biggest impact for change happening in your home. Now, the fourth thing that comes up is what I see happen the most for families. They will choose the path of least resistance. We're going to just do what works, right? Because we know that our child will go to sleep if we do whatever it is that they know or need. Because a lot of times, we just know we'll get there quicker. And the challenging part with this is that sometimes that doesn't offer long-lasting results. But what I have found, and I am guilty of this, like the path of least resistance, doing what works, makes the most sense for the short term. But again, sometimes we're doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And that would be the definition of insanity. But I think that what ends up happening is that fear creeps in. And sometimes we don't recognize that this might be fear of maybe change. We might not like to do something different. We might have the fear of how long it might take our little one to learn a new skill. Or maybe there's the fear of not getting what you need. Because oftentimes we're trying to get our kids to sleep or maybe to nap because we need a break. And so sometimes we're like, I'll just do this because I know it will work, but it might not be the most beneficial. And sometimes it might be that we don't understand maybe the full method. Why are we choosing whatever sleep coaching method we're doing? How have we taught our child to sleep? And so sometimes like not knowing and understanding can be really hard and confusing. And in the show notes, you're going to see a handout for the sleep coaching methods. And right here, I share the 4 different ways that parents can incorporate that into their sleep coaching process. I think it's important to know all 4 methods because sometimes in your plan, you may need to tweak and adjust your approach. But a lot of times we may fall back to the path of least resistance. And a lot of times that also can create a lot of inconsistencies, which creates a lot of confusion for our little ones. The 5th reason that parents sometimes may find sleep coaching hard is a lack of sleep knowledge. Now, I'm going to share with you that sleep is complex. There are so many books and resources about sleep. And I find that a lot of times families will probably skip the sleep basics in the book. They're like, let's get to the method. And so sometimes if we don't know and understand sleep and like sleep expectations for our child at their particular age and stage, it can be really hard and confusing. A lot of times people don't realize that children are asleep more than they're awake during the first 2 years of life. That's right. The first 2 years of life, they can be asleep somewhere between 12 to 14 hours in a 24-hour period. And so a lot of times when we know and understand how sleep works, especially it's really different during these first 5 to 6 years for children, which is why I have a free sleep series training to help educate families about sleep. I've had a lot of parents tell me like, wow, this really helped us start getting sleep. And I'm excited that it did. That's my goal and my mission. I want parents to get sleep for their children. And so sometimes when we learn and understand how sleep works, especially during these early years, it helps us. The other thing that sometimes happens is that our beliefs, the things that we believe about sleep, can also impact our children. And here's what I mean by that. I believed I was a night owl for the longest time. So I would get my kiddos to sleep and then I would stay up really late and then they would wake up in the morning. And I would be so irritated in the morning because I was like, why are you not sleeping in? But it was merely not knowing and understanding like this season of life where my kiddos were, and also not reflecting and checking in on what I was doing with my sleep patterns. And that's the part in sleep coaching. Sometimes we're not just looking about what our child is doing, we're also looking at what are we as the parents doing as well. Because I think it's all about our relationship, how we're working and communicating together to get good sleep at home. So I hope that helps in understanding sometimes that lack of sleep knowledge, understanding like what does my child really need and how do I actually help them learn that precious little skill of going to sleep, especially at the onset of a bedtime or nap time. And the 6th of 12 reasons why sleep training is so hard is sometimes having a lack of a sleep plan. A lot of times I hear families, they're like, I read this blog or this book, and they do something and they try it for like one night and they don't give it enough time to really work. And I will share with you that, oftentimes when I'm working with family, I'm going to encourage everyone to try something for at least 3 to 5 nights before you change gears. But also, after those 3 to 5 nights, we need to have a plan of action, like where are we going? Because one of the things that parents don't always realize is that it can really take the body 2 to 3 weeks to shift and adjust, no matter what sleep coaching method you choose. But sometimes we don't have a plan of action to see the roadmap of where we're going and why we're doing what we're doing and being able to respond consistently. And so a sleep plan often gives us that direction. It's like our roadmap of like how we're going to start getting that precious sleep we would like. And this is oftentimes also what causes a lot of inconsistencies, because sometimes we don't realize like how we're communicating with our child because maybe we're switching gears midway. And so sometimes not having a plan of action, kind of knowing what the plan is, what we're doing, how we're going to respond consistently can make a huge difference. So I hope that helps you start to see maybe one of these areas might be a trouble area for you. And now hopefully you have some tools to know how to get back on track. Because the first 6 reasons why sleep training is hard is that children can really be unpredictable. Sometimes we don't listen to our bodies. Sometimes it could be a lack of sleep or stress. Sometimes it is the path of least resistance. And it can also be a lack of sleep knowledge and sometimes a lack of a sleep plan. In part 2 of this, we're going to dive into the last 6 reasons that makes sleep coaching so hard. But down in the show notes, you'll be able to print off the sleep coaching methods handout or check out the free video series training to help you make sure that you have all the knowledge you need to get sleep in place in your home. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. You can see all of the details and show notes below. And as you go out into your day, I hope that you'll make it your mission to be calm, confident, and rested as you lead today. Sweet dreams.